Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, Past, Present, and Future. Welcome. And here now, Corey Gomez.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Chronicles of Hollywood History, Past, Present, and Future. This is Corey, and today I am joined by the living legend, the man himself, Wheeze, Lord General Bennett. I am here with Vernon Wells. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
I have to ask my first question before I start breaking things down. How did you get started in the acting business?
It was not my favored thing that I wanted to do. It was not a profession that I went looking for. But I was fascinated, actually, with behind the camera. And, I used to do a lot of commercials and things in Australia for one particular director. And I was always behind the camera looking at what the cameraman was doing, wandering around to see what the lighting guy was doing. It fascinated me. And one day he asked me what the heck I wanted to do. Did I want to be behind the camera or in front of it? And I said, preferably I'd like to be behind it. I really don't like being in front of it. And he said, what makes you think you'd be any good? And I said, well, I don't know, I could probably be as good as you are, which you really don't say to one of the top directors in Australia. And I thought that I'd just blown that one, because I didn't get hired to do a commercial for like 6 months. And then one day I got a phone call, and it was from his company saying, he wants to see you. So I went over and had a chat to him, and he said, I'd like to hire you as my assistant. And you'll work your way through all the departments from the ground up, and if you actually have a brain, then when you get up to the top department, which is producing, you'll be my producer, and then you'll probably get a chance at directing. And that was my dream. I was like, in heaven. And so I did that, and I worked my way through and started producing commercials and things and documentaries and all this kind of stuff. And then lo and behold, he stood up to his word, and George walked by my office one night and said, don't go to bed too late, because you're directing the commercial we're doing tomorrow. And that was where it started. I started directing, and I was doing commercials. Then I formed my own company, and I was directing a lot of stuff. And I really didn't like being in front of the camera, but the really weird part was that I spent more time in front of the camera telling people how I wanted it to go than anything, like being very hands-on director. And it sort of went from there. There was, strangely enough, a client one day said to me, you know what, I could save a lot of money if I just cast you as the character and you directed yourself. And I went, what? And he said, well, you spend more time in front of the camera trying to get them to do what you want than you do behind it. And I thought he was being mean, and he wasn't. He was being serious. That I spent more time doing it, and I would be much better off doing that because I was better at it than the people that were hired to do the job. And that's where it started. And then some guy called George Miller, his girlfriend, Sandy Gore, saw me in a stage play. She actually saw me naked and told George that I had a nice ass and that he should come and hire me. And George and I got together, had a chat, and I'd never seen Mad Max, didn't know what it was. About 3 months later, my managers rang me and said, you got to fly to Sydney to do wardrobe and makeup tests for the new Road Warrior movie. And I was like, what's a Road Warrior? And I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And that's where it started. I'd really never done anything until then in that bigger thing. I mean, I'd been in television series and things, but in a minor role, in maybe one episode, 2 episodes, or a couple of them I was in the whole thing, but I was the right-hand man to the star, but he really never said anything or did anything. So it was not anything that was promoting me into being an actor. And I really didn't care, because that's not where I wanted to go. I spent most of my time watching how they did things so that when I went back to directing, I could use that. But Mr. Miller had different ideas, and he stuck me in Road Warrior, and that was the end of that, as they say.
Well, now, you I mean, you were not in Mad Max, you were in The Road Warrior, but Mad Max, I don't know if you know this, Mad Max to me, I apologize to any fans out there, it's a boring movie. I'm not saying it's not a well-made movie and the cars and everything aren't cool, but there's no action in Mad Max till kind of toward the end. Then part two, nuclear holocaust, somehow he doesn't die, maybe because of his car. And now there's crazed gangs looking for gas, and it went from just kind of like a simple, almost like a police revenge movie, to this crazy, precursor to the Fast and the Furious, this big post-apocalyptic car thing. Why do you think they changed direction like completely 180?
He didn't actually change direction. That was George's thing, that he started off the Mad Max was the precursor. That was the first one. That was when the world is coming apart. Mm-hmm. And you see it slowly starting to deteriorate and to go into being what it was. Road Warrior was the consequence of that. Road Warrior was where everything had ended, and now it was the scavengers of the world who were surviving, the ones that were big enough, smart enough, or just totally mean enough, would survive, and the rest would be fodder for their thing. So he actually didn't do a 180. He actually followed on. So the first one was the prelude, and then there was Road Warrior, and there was only supposed to be 2 movies, according to George, but he got asked to do the third one, and it never really fit with what he was doing, mm-hmm. and that's why he then did the one that came out, 2 years ago, basically because that then was the going further, which that same storyline, to where everything had decayed into, there was nothing left, and now what we were doing was reverting back in society to warlords and people that controlled vast amounts of other people because they had the resources and they could dictate. So it's really a linear line that if you look at it from the perspective of what it is, it's kind of a line of progression from one thing to the other. And he's still got 2 to do there at the moment, putting everything together for Furiosa, which will be doing the backstory of the girl in the last one.
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron's character. So they're doing that one. They're doing all the casting and everything at the moment. So it's kind of a different, it's not a linear progression, but it's a progression of circumstance. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, what we see now, I'm a big Fast and the Furious fan. No shame in saying that. That's CG. Now, what you did in The Road Warrior, that one, there was no CG. Was it kind of dangerous filming some of that stuff? We were young, dumb, and didn't care. Because, those were really you guys standing on these speeding cars.
It was dangerous, yes, but we just wanted... But George is very good. He's extraordinarily good. He knows exactly what he can do and what he can get away with and how to do it so people aren't hurt. And there was only 2 injuries in the whole movie, and they were accidents. They didn't happen because something was... stupid, somebody got their leg broken because a camel decided to kick shit out of them. And, you don't chase camels. It was that simple. And there was a back injury to the stunt director when the car flipped and just went a little bit further than it should have gone. But he didn't die or get crippled or anything. He just got an injury. So it was pretty much safe. And the same when they did Fury Road. All of that, as much of that film as possible was shot in camera. As George said, there was only like 10% of it that was done with special effects. That was when it got to a point of where people would get hurt. He then used special effects to create what they wanted to get. But all the rest of it was all shot within camera.
Now, Mel Gibson I mean, all three movies, did not really talk a lot. He really was the epitome of the strong silent type. Did you or anyone figure he would come to, the States and be like one of the biggest stars of the 80s and 90s?
Yep.
Oh.
We all knew he would. He had what they call he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. You just knew that Mel was going to make it. I mean, he was just, that was it. You didn't even think about it. You knew that Mel was going to make it. He had that thing. He was the man, as they say. I mean, the funny thing is that when I first came to America to get my work permit, Mel Gibson went to SAG and signed off on me.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah, so that's how I got my work permit when I first came to America to work in America. He didn't have that problem because he's an American citizen. So I did because, I had to get a work permit to work here, and he signed off for me, and that's how I got my work permit. That's how I was able to stay here and get my green card and all that stuff. So, no, but yeah, you knew that Mel was going to be somebody. He just had that thing about him. Always.
Now, when you came to do Weird Science, did they cast you to basically play your Road Warrior character? Because the similarities are 100%.
Yeah, they were. They had to change. They were actually going to have me play the character in the original thing, but Warner Brothers got all stroppy about the copyright and all that shit, so they changed the way I was dressed and the look a little tiny bit. Like gave me an eagle on the side of my head and changed the costuming, and so there was things that they changed to make it not quite the same. But yeah, it was the same character. I actually didn't want to do it originally, simply because I'd been there, done that, and really didn't want to go back. But when I heard who was directing it, John Hughes, and the young angst movie director, with all these amazing movies, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, and all that stuff, you go, wow, I really want to work with that guy, regardless. And that was the one reason that I did it. And fortune is that I did that, and Joel Silver was the producer, and he said that while I was here, he said, I'd like you to come meet the director of my next movie. It's a big action movie, and you'd be perfect for the villain in it. And of course, the director didn't see it that way at first, and someone else was hired, and then eventually they changed their mind, and then I got rehired to come out from Australia and do it. So it was all one of those things of total circumstance. I came over. I didn't want to come over, but I came. And then when I came here, I got asked to do the next one, and then it just it went from there. And 290-something movies later, I'm still here. I'm still trying to figure out how I can get home.
Well, I have to ask, even though you're probably basically to the point of being harassed about 1985, considered by most people one of the best films of the 80s, rightfully so, Commando, where you were the world's most flamboyant killer mercenary I've ever seen. It was an amazing performance. Everybody gave an amazing performance in that movie. Top to bottom, it's such a fun film.
Oh yeah, it was an 80s film. It was the top of the candle film for the 80s. It just had everything in it, and it worked. It was so cliche and so kitsch it wasn't funny. But the point was that when it was made, it was perfect. You couldn't do it today and make it work. That's the funny thing. It just would not work. But back then it did. And it was great. I had a ball in. I just really, when I first came over to do it, I had no idea who Arnold Schwarzenegger was. I couldn't even pronounce his name, for God's sake. And I just didn't know who the man was, and first time I met him was on the set after I had been deprived of sleep for about 16 hours flying to America. and we sort of we didn't really hit it off when we started, but after the first couple of scenes I did with him, we were away like you know, like white on rye, as they say, or white on rice, or some damn thing. I don't even know what the saying is.
I think it's rice. I don't know.
I don't know, but anyway, we got to be very close and had a lot of fun doing the film. I mean, that was a tough film to do. We're big boys, both of us, and we were just, every time we were together, we were trying to see who could piss up the wall the highest. We got bruised, man. We really got bruised.
What made you play it so over the top? I mean, it was fantastic, but you know, usually when you see a Merc in a movie, they're more dead serious. Where you just had so much fun. I could tell you were having fun doing it. What made you decide to? Was it written for you to play it a little bit more like that, or is that something that you just did?
No, it was just the way the thing is, you're playing with Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured out very quickly that if I got really serious, it wasn't going to work because Arnold's like a big kid in a candy store. So, you know, it just wasn't going to work. You know, it was just going to be this big clash of things. So you really had to play it at where he was the star, and so you had to play into what he was doing. And he was having fun doing it, and he had all the one-liners and all that kind of stuff. So you really just had to play along with that. And if you didn't, you were going to look like you were chewing the scenery and trying to upstage him, and that's the worst thing you can do. So I just went for it and had a ball.
Oh, he had some of the best lines. Don't wake my friend, he's dead tired. But, I mean, when the steam pipe in your stomach, and he says, let off some steam, Bennett. That's classic. Yeah. I mean, my great-grandkids are going to... I showed that movie to my son when he was like 7 or 8. To this day, he still has... I have to keep rebuying it because he outgrows it. He's 11. He has a big shirt with Arnold from Commando. It says, fuck you, asshole, on it real big. That's one of his favorite movies. Because I'm a great parent here. I encourage those things.
Yeah, no, it was a good movie. I really enjoyed it. And it was, you know, for its time, it was just a classic. It really was. The same as Road Warrior for its time. You know, it was just one of those films. And you know, I was fortunate to be in 3 that, you know, like Inner Space was, I thought, one of Steven Spielberg's best movies, but came out at the wrong time with all the wrong things, but it's still, to this day, it's still a wonderful film. And Weird Science is another one that I did, with the one I did with John Hughes, which I think was this great movie, and I had a lot of fun in that, doing my version of Wes being a total smartass.
I liked... now, did you ever think in Commando that, you know, here you're working with Arnold, one of his first movies, not only would he go on to become one of the biggest stars of all time, but a governor?
Yes. It was interesting. Arnold was one of those people that had that personality. You knew that he was going to push forward regardless, and that he was going to go to where he was going, whether you liked it or not, sort of thing. You knew he was going to get there. He was going to be that person. And it was obvious. I mean, he was very, very strong-willed. And he was, being the governor of California, that one I never saw coming. But the rest of it, yeah, I figured he'd go on and make movies because there was a niche that he filled perfectly. And that was, you know, he was going to do that, and he was going to be very successful at it. And he was, and still is. Although now he's calmed it down, he's a lot more, like, real. But back then he was playing these big cartoon characters. You know, he was doing the first of like, all the cartoon movies we have now, you know, all the comic book characters. Mm-hmm. He was the first of the comic book characters, you know. He was playing it out there big and bold, and now you have every second week there's, you know, Iron Man or something else, which is based on that same concept. So he really started all of that. You got to give him credit for it.
You know, you made, there's 2 movies I like. and they're both called Fortress. You were in both. You were in both of those movies. I find that very awesome that you're in both Fortresses that are sitting on my shelf. The one from '85 where you played a duck or a guy in a duck mask. That was that. I've heard over the years that was based on a true story. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. It was actually based on a true story, which was a group of criminals hijacked a bus of school kids with their teacher, and then they held them for ransom, and they took the bus and they buried it. I mean, they didn't bury it to kill the kids. They buried it so it wouldn't be found, and the kids could still breathe, and they put feeding tubes and all that kind of stuff. But what happened was that the kids eventually were able to get out of the bus and dig their way out, and one of them managed to get to another farm, because it was out in the farmland, get to another farm and tell them what was going on, and they rang the police, and that's how they got caught. It wasn't quite the way it was in the film. They changed that a bit, where the kids become the aggressors and take out all of the criminals. They didn't quite do that in real life, but the rest of it was, it was based on a true story.
Did you enjoy making that one? That was a very well done, smaller budget, but very, very well done film.
Oh, it was great fun. I love being Daffy Duck.
Now, what did you think of the other Fortress, where they put landmines in your balls if you had a wet dream and blew you up so they could abort your wife's baby when you were in prison? Yeah. I don't like science fiction. I make no shame in admitting it. I loved Fortress. That was so freaking out there and weird. I loved it.
It was really, 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 really good. And Stuart being one of my best friends, the director, I loved it. I just had so much, and being back in Australia filming was kind of fun too, because I knew all of the guys on the crew from back in my days of television and stuff. So it was like a great homecoming for me to be there and doing that. And it was just a great movie. You know, Stuart Gordon was one of those wonderful people that just made it work. And I had a lot of fun, and it was funny because when we did the scene where I get the big hole blown in my body when I'm up on the catwalk, that was supposed to happen. I was just supposed to go, and fall off that catwalk. It was a very quick scene. But it didn't work out that way, as you'd notice in the film, because I put my hand through my body and I look at, what's his name, and with big eyes, and he looks at me like, oh my God, and I just sort of wander, like, weaver a little bit, and then slowly just topple off the thing. And Stuart said when they said cut on that scene, he went, I give you half a page, you make it last for a fucking movie.
No, I love them. It was such a weird concept. Christopher Lambert was awesome, and he played good for being a littler guy. He played a good badass, and the movie was just. Yep. It just hit me that it was. I don't know, say it was a believable film, but it looked like it was a lot of fun to make. Like you guys all had a good time, and it translated to the screen very well.
Yeah, and all the main characters were great. I mean, Chris was great. So was what's his name, Smith?
Kirkwood Smith. Yeah.
Well, yeah. He was wonderful in it, and the girl was wonderful in it. So you had all these really, really good characters, and the whole thing, the sets and the effects, everything that was done in that film was perfect, and it just worked. And, there was just this nice thing that was done with it. And I enjoyed it. I had a ball doing it. As I said, I got to go back to Australia. I got to work with a lot of people that I knew there, and also some of the people that were in the movie. Jeffrey, I knew very well. So Jeffrey Coombs. So, I was able to, and Gonzalez. Once from that, we stayed friends after that film, and I still see him occasionally, and we always chat. So it was just one of those things where, you just have a ball, and the people on the film are really fun.
You did another movie. I don't know if you seem to remember all your movies, but here's a weird question. You did a movie that I really liked in '95. It was called an action movie, Hard Justice. Charles Napier.
Hard Justice. Charles, yes. Who nearly pushed a gun through my ribs.
Now, David Bradley was the star of that. And he was being and I liked him. He was being promoted heavy. He had American Ninja, another American Ninja, American Samurai. He did a lot of American stuff there, but then he disappeared. Do you have any? I mean, do you have any idea what? I mean, like I saw like 5 movies with him in the span of 2 years, and I never heard from him again. And I was like a fanatic for those straight-to-video martial arts films.
I don't really know what happened to him, but I saw him probably a couple of years after that, 2 or 3 years after that. He came actually into our office because we have a company that does, and back then did a lot of typing of resumes and things, and he had to get some work done. And I remember talking to him, but he had sort of taken a break from the business because I guess like everybody, he got burned out, and he was doing things he shouldn't do, so he decided to take a break. And I think he was having problems with other things. And then I never heard much after that. I guess his break just became a lot longer than he figured.
Yeah, there's been a few. There was one actor I was trying to find for a while, and I couldn't do it, And finally, somebody just told me, they're like, well, I hate to break this to you. He wasn't getting work. And he snapped. He lost it. He broke down. I was like, okay, well, we'll cross him off the list.
Yeah, it's funny that I've never taken this business seriously in not my career, the business as a whole, because it's that whole thing that I learned very early in my career that actors have 2 things. They're either up on top of the world or they're at the bottom of the world. There's no middle ground. There's no gray for actors. You're either, yes, I've got it, I'm the most wonderful thing, or I'm never going to work again, everybody hates me, and what the fuck am I doing in this business? And I learned very quick about that after getting myself into a few stupid situations, and just decided that I wasn't going to do that. It was like, it's the old 10%, you do 10 auditions, you get 1 call back. You have a 1 chance in 10 of getting that call back. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It's all numbers. It's got nothing to do with who you are or how good you are. It's got to do with numbers. And so once you understand the way the thing works, then you don't worry. I used to look at it. If I went for an audition, I would do an audition. I would ring my manager and go, you can ring them up and do the deal, because I'm sure I got it. I never get it. Mm. Never get it. Then I'll ring up my manager and go, sorry, Joseph, I blew this. I was just so fucking ridiculous. And he'll say, well, that's amazing. They just rang up to do a deal for you. So you cannot predict. It's like, it's this numbers thing. You just cannot predict. So what you do is you don't worry about it. If I get the job, that is the greatest thing in the world. If I don't get the job, you know what? I wasn't meant to have the job. I'll get the next one or the one after that. So I will just keep moving forward to those. That way your life stays stable and you don't get into this, I'm not getting work, I went through 5 years of not getting work. And then all of a sudden, I just started getting work, and I haven't stopped since. And that was 15 odd years ago, and I've done over 100 films in that time. And I just continue, and I've still got work coming out of my bazooka. And I don't audition anymore. I guess I've done so much work, people actually think I can act. So it's just that
I think you can act quite well.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes. I always say to my friends, they always say to me, well, what's your secret? How did you do it? Stick your foot in the door, and when they try to slam the door, keep it there. Yeah. Eventually, they'll get sick of trying to slam the door and go, oh, for God's sake, what have I got to do to get rid of you? That's when you get your nose in. And just, that's the idea. Just keep at it. Don't walk away from it. The road is littered with the bodies of those that didn't have the guts to continue. It's that simple. And so it's a hard thing you do to become an actor. It's not a career I would tell anybody to do. But if you're going to do it, just decide that you're going to do it and you're going to go for it. And you're going to stay with it, and you're just going to take the ups with the downs, the good with the bad, because you're going to get a hell of a lot of all of them. And just do it, and do 150% in everything you do. Go on the set, know what you're doing, know your lines, know your character, be able to do your job, and then you'll keep getting hired. It's that simple.
You did one, and this is kind of ironic. You did a movie in 97. I like the movie. Now, 2 days ago, I talked to Marshall Teague. In a few days, I'm going to talk to Ralph Molay. Now, I can't talk to Roddy Piper. He was my childhood hero, but he passed away. But you got to do the bad pack with all these guys.
Yep.
Now, how... I love that film. That was a straight-to-video classic. How was that like making? I mean, it looked like a lot of dangerous stunts and with probably not a lot of protection. Was it a fun film, or was it just a typical day
It was
at
a good film. I got a little bit hurt in it because on the motorbike, nobody realized that the dirt we were riding around on was about an inch deep, and it was that had been put over the top of an asphalt road. And so there was a scene where I go straight down the road and I do a turn to the right. There's a church at the bottom of the road. And the first time we did it, I actually went down and the director said, "That's cool, but we need it a lot faster." And I said, "Oh, okay." So the next time I did a lot faster, put the brakes on as I got to the end of the road to slow down. And of course, the wheel went through the dirt, hit the asphalt, and I did a somersault with the bike, and sort of got up and had a big gash in my arm and scrapes down my back. As you notice, I wasn't wearing anything.
No.
And what they had to do is they would keep holding a pad on my arm to stop the bleeding until they said action, and then I'd do the scene, whatever there was in the scene, until my arm started bleeding, and then they'd have to do cut. So they continued to film. They actually got it done. But apart from that, no, I loved it. I'm into all that stuff. You know, I'm just a big boy. I grew up on a farm, for goodness sake. I used to chase cows and bloody sheep and throw sheep around to get them shorn in the sheep pen. So all of that stuff was just part and parcel of who I was. You know, getting thrown off a bike and getting scarred up was like, "Hey, that was interesting. Don't do that again." But it was never like a problem. You know, I didn't walk away going, "Oh my God, you know, my arm, you know, I'm going to sue everybody." It was like, that was fun. You know, sorry about getting blood on everybody, but, you know, and that's sort of the thing. And all of those films, the little ones I did, you know, I have more fun on the smaller films than I do on the big ones. The big ones are so regimented, you know, you have your room where you go, and they have somebody who's you when you're not on set. And I love being on set, so I don't need somebody that's me when I'm not on set. I want to be on set, but you're not allowed. You have to go back to your dressing room. And whereas on the small movies, they couldn't afford to have a you on set. They have you on set. So I'm there all day working and doing what I have to do for lighting and doing the, you know, for the camera, doing the setups and things. So I love all that. And the camaraderie on a small film, to me, is much bigger than it is on a big film, because you're all there for the same reason, to do the film and enjoy it. Whereas on a bigger film, you don't have that time to be close because you're not really close. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're all in your dressing room, or you're here, or you're doing that. Whereas on a little film, you're lucky if you got a friggin' dressing room. And if you do have one, you've probably got 6 other people sharing it with you. So, you know, it's a whole different setup, and so you become much closer. Now, and I enjoy that much more.
You did all these awesome hard R action films.
Yep.
And then you went to Power Rangers Time Force.
Yep.
How did that come about? I'm very curious as to, not that you weren't good in it, because I am a Power Ranger fan, so was my kid. How did, what was that kind of I don't want to say a stretch, but was that a different for you, so to speak?
That was in my drug period when I didn't know what I was doing.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. No, I did a film in Ireland, which Stuart Gordon directed, in which we had 3 or 4 wonderful, wonderful people. It was a sky pirate type movie, and when we were doing that, one of the guy that our stunt coordinator was Japanese, Koichi, and I got on really well with Koichi, and then I of course came back to America after I'd finished my filming over in Ireland, and about 6 months later I got asked. I was actually up in working, doing a sort of a little show for the internet, an internet show on what was happening in Las Vegas, interviewing all the different shows and getting involved in some of them and doing all this fun stuff. And I got asked to fly down to Los Angeles for an audition for a television series. So I was like, oh, all right. So I came down, and they told me when I got down here it was for a kids show, and it was Time Force, and I had no idea what Time Force was. And I went to the audition, and when I walked into the room, there was all these people I'd seen on television, like all of them. And I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting. I'm like the only freaking film actor in this whole group. And so I definitely don't have a television IQ. So I went through, and it came my turn. I walked into the room, and there was Koichi. He's one of the producers. And he wanted me to come in and audition. So I did the audition and left and went back to Vegas to finish what I was doing. And they asked me to come back 2 days later and do another one. So I went back and I did another audition. And then I think a week after that, they asked me to come in because the executive producer hadn't been able to see any of the auditions. He'd been sick. So there was like 3 people they wanted, him to see. I went in, did my audition again, and got the role. And I still had no idea what I was doing. And then they told me it was a kid's show, and that I'd be playing this villain of the piece, and that it was based on a Japanese show, and they used a lot of Japanese footage and things for it, and costuming and different things. However, the character I was playing was not in the original series. It'd been written for the show because they didn't have a male villain. They had a female one, and they wanted to go back to having male villains. And the girl that actually played my daughter, her character was actually the lead villain in the series, but they didn't want that. They wanted to be a male, so that was how I got it. And I had the greatest fun of my life for 12 months, running around with these kids who were so determined they were going to make me look like I couldn't act in every scene I was in with them, and became incredibly close to all of them. And the script writers were wonderful. They wrote some great scripts. They did a 2-part episode, if you know the show, which was all set at the studio, and it was called Movie Magic. And I look like Wes, except kind of look like Wes and look like the character out of the show at the same time. And I was chasing the kids around for 2 episodes. They were all playing the characters that they would dream of being if they were able to be movie stars. And that was the most hysterical thing. I was wearing a tutu and all these other things, and just having so much fun. And they'd actually asked me if they could do it. They said, look, we don't think you're going to say yes, but we're going to give it a shot. We want to do this, blah. And I went, when? When are we doing it? It sounds like so much fun. And I had a ball for that whole series. I just really, when it was over, I was so pissed. I thought they should have kept the cast together for at least another season.
There's been a few times where they've kept it going for 2-3 years, and sometimes just the one. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is to that series.
Basically, the agents for the kids would get a little bit pushy with money, and so they would just close it down and get a new cast.
Yeah, I remember when the original came out, and like 4 out of 6 of them were like, "Hey, we're selling all the merchandise in the world. We want raises." And the next thing you know, well, those kids got transferred to another school, and here comes 4 new kids. So that was kind of to send a message there right in the beginning that you're replaceable.
Yep. Nobody was unreplaceable. And it was funny because I got to kill the Red Ranger in the first episode, which had never been done in America on the TV series Power Rangers. They'd never killed a Red Ranger, and especially not on the first episode. So I get to kill the Red Ranger on the first episode. And I was in Japan doing a show over there, and they were doing a big interview with me, and they said, what did you think of the show? And I said, I love doing it, and, I thought it was wonderful that, for the first time, the villain got to kill a Red Ranger. That was just wow. And they went, yeah, we do that every week. And I went, oh, well, that just ruined my whole day. Because I thought I was just so smart. I'd killed the Red Ranger. That made me somebody special. And I was like, no, actually, no, we do it every week. But yeah, I love the series. I love the kids. We're still, that cast, even now, we're still all friends, every one of us. If there's something that has to be done that we're all involved in, we all go and do it. We're just the closest friends from that show, which I think was the one thing that came out of it that I love.
What was it like being a British governor, if you will, in Green Street Hooligans 2?
Loved it.
I liked all 3 of them, but boy, that's a series that every movie is completely different.
Yep. I actually wasn't in it originally, and it was funny because I got asked by the director, whom I know, because I'd done another film earlier than that for him, and he said, would you mind coming into a table read we're having because we're short of a few people? And I said, of course, I'd love to come over and play. And so I went to their table read, and I was actually reading the governor and 2 other parts. And the reason I was reading him was that the person that was supposed to play the governor was actually the writer's husband. And he wasn't doing it that day. So I went over and I did it. And apparently after we finished, the whole cast went up to the director and producers and said, look, we want him to play the character. He does it much better. We just want him to play the character. And so basically that's how it happened. I just suddenly, the next day I got called and told, hey, you'll be doing that character in the film. And I was, what? I hadn't even been cast for it. I hadn't even been asked. I just got it because the cast liked what I did. So, and everybody else agreed. So, and I had a ball doing it. It was fun because I got to meet Marina Sirtis, who is one of the greatest human beings in the world, as long as you don't mind having the shit taken out of you every 5 seconds. But she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady and just an amazing actress to be around. So one of the few people that's ever made me lose my lines on the set when I was doing a scene with them. She was so good. And I never get confused with people. And I just stood there looking at her while she was doing this scene and could not remember what I was supposed to say. It was just very funny. But, nope, loved it.
Have you seen the 3rd one yet, where Scott Adkins teaches the hooligans mixed martial arts to fight in an underground tournament?
No, I haven't seen the 3rd one.
I'd recommend it. It's pretty damn good.
Oh, okay. Then I'll have a look at it.
They're all good. Like I said, they're all different, but they're all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the second one kind of had a thread to the first one because in the first one they all get arrested and put in jail. So that was really where the through line came into the second one. But that's all there was. I mean, from there, the whole cast was different. So it was kind of weird, but what the hell? But the third one, I didn't realize it until you told me then that there was a third one, that they'd done a third one of it.
Yeah, that one was more of it was Scott Adkins, so that one was more of a martial arts, is a vehicle for his martial arts.
Right. Who directed that one?
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
I can sure find out. The first one, when I watched, I remember my wife fell in love with Charlie Hunnam, and then, here we go, Sons of Anarchy, and that went him through the roof.
Yep.
Great actor.
Oh yeah, you've got to, you just have sometimes the pieces all fit together. I mean, I've never really done a lot of television, like in a lot of television. Mine has always been movies. I get movies. I'd love to do television, believe me. I think that would be really amazing. And I've got a couple of shows that are actually sniffing around me at the moment, in which I may go back to television, which would be really good. I enjoy it, but I just enjoy what I'm doing. Most of what I'm doing at the moment is, apart from acting, is producing and directing. So that's back to my old roots. I've come full circle from being a producer, director way back to now going full circle through the acting to producing and directing as well as acting, which is kind of fun. I love it. I love directing, actually, and now I actually think I'm intelligent enough to do it properly because I've done so much work. I actually know what I'm doing.
If you're ever looking for a henchman, keep me in mind. Henchman 2. Not good enough for 1.
Okay.
Not good enough for 1. Better than 3.
Okay. Henchman 2.
Henchman 2.
That'll be your name in the script.
And it was
2.
James Nunn that directed Green Street Hooligans 3.
James Nunn. Okay.
And it looks like he's worked with Scott Adkins before, so
yep.
He seems to work with Scott Adkins. I don't know if you know him. He seems to work with a lot of the same. From what I could tell, he has a certain group of directors he likes to work with, and it's smart. They know how to direct him because his fighting scenes are so eclectic.
Yeah. No, I have the same thing. There's a certain group of directors and producers that I work with probably 80% of the time. They're doing films, and they'll ring me up and say, come and do film. The director of the second one of that series did a film. It came out a few months ago. It was Debt Collector 2.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, that's Scott Adkins' film, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I worked with Scott, and I worked with what's his name? Cannot think of his name. He beat me up to death.
And I've seen both of them. I just watched the second one the other day. His partner, right?
Yeah.
Here, I'll just cheat. Louis Mandylor.
Yep. And Louis and I got along famously, and he beat the crap out of me in the film. It was kind of fun.
How dangerous is Scott Adkins?
That piss him off.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone, and I've been doing martial arts for close to 40 years. I've never seen anyone jump up in the air and be able to throw 3 kicks and a punch, and to be that size of an individual. I can watch his movies silently, just to watch the fluidity of the moves.
Yeah, no, he's very, very good, and he's a good actor, actually.
He is very good.
Actor. He does good. He was good in Debt Collector. He was fine.
I'm going to talk to him one day. I've talked to everybody that's worked with him. I'm going to talk to him one day.
Well, damn it, you should.
I'm trying. His manager doesn't answer my emails. Now I'm going to have to start making phone calls and get persistent.
That's the way. Yeah, never give up.
How did
yeah.
How did Death House come about? Because that how did you get that that one? That because there was such build to such of the Expendables of horror. I remember was how it was presented to the audiences before it came out.
Yeah, well, Felissa Rose is a very good close friend of mine, and I'd done a couple of. She produced a couple of videos, song videos, and they had lots and lots of people from the horror genre in them. And when Death House came about, she contacted me and said, "Listen, I'd like you to come in and see the director, and because I'm involved in this film with Rick called Death House." And I actually knew, I actually knew the writer, the guy that started the whole thing was Leatherface. And I knew him from all of the conventions that we've been at together, and we were friends. So that was the original connection. And then when they were making it, Felissa got in touch with me and asked me, and they wanted me to be one of the 5 evils. Now, they were supposed to do a sequel, which was called The 5 Evils, which was about each one of the 5 of us. But I don't know what happened to that.
Yeah, because that was one of Sid Haig's last films, so that's always, I'll miss him. I remember watching him in exploitation films in the 70s.
Yeah, he was, Sid was Sid. He really, when you saw him on film, he was Sid. When you saw him at a convention, he was Sid. It was one of those things that didn't really change, and he was wonderful. He was gruff and I loved him, and he just had that personality, and he got away with it.
Now I got to ask you, the big deal is a big deal for me. A lot of action fans. The Expendables, and we got Sylvester, and we got Arnold, and Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, all these. Were you ever approached? Because you're one of the most iconic '80s villains. Were you ever approached for one of those films?
Nope.
Well, that's not right.
Nobody ever asked me. Nobody ever came near me. They don't like me.
Well, I don't like that. If I knew Stallone's number, I'd call him and complain.
Yeah, I always said that I'd love to do one because they were fun. But I guess if they ever did another one, I'd probably have to get asked because they're getting close to having no more 80s people around to do it.
He's been talking about doing a part 4 for a while.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll contact me because, they're all going. So I'm one of the few now that's still here.
I think they missed the boat with not doing the B-Team Expendables, where you got all the straight-to-video guys to do it. I thought that would have been a better movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah, would have been fun.
I see Don the Dragon and Cynthia Rothrock lead a mercenary gang.
Yes.
Or something like that. That'd be great.
Cynthia was wonderful. I know Cynthia. She's a wonderful lady.
Oh, she is. I got to talk to her. Boy, I can't believe I had a crush on her when she was probably in her 20s. She looks the same. I don't get how that's possible.
Yeah, no, she's sweet.
Yes.
She has that wonderful sweet thing about her when you talk to her, she's just very, very personable and sweet.
Yeah, she was, I've talked to her, and I talked to her maybe twice after. Truly, just one of the nicest women I've ever met, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Genuine.
No, she's just a very sweet lady. And, I love every time I'm doing a show, if I see her, I love hanging out with her. She's just one of those people that you really like. And Mr. Norton as well. He used to do the movies with her all the time. So, we're all from that same genre.
I told him when I interviewed him, I said, because, this was before the internet, you didn't know. I was like, I always wondered who that good-looking blonde Australian guy was making the moves on the girl I had a crush on. I was like, I hated you every time you were in her movies, you know. And then he's like, oh no, we're just friends like that. So it was like, no, I never would have told you that because you would have killed me in about 2 seconds. But no, he was fun too. Oh, they're all such respectful people. All you guys are. You know, you just have such a love for the cinema. You know, it's great.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my whole thing is. I get so pissed off with the young people today who treat this business with such disdain. They don't care. They're just in there to make loads of money and blow it up their nose or whatever and be total little shits. That's not what the business is all about. The business is about being professional and doing a job, whether you're doing a B movie, a C movie, or an A movie. It doesn't matter. Put the same effing effort into it.
Like I
It's just the way it is.
My son's 11. He knows who you are. Commando. You know, Commando's... How old's Commando now? 30 years old? He knows
yeah, probably that's 30-something.
Now, in another 30 years, people are going to watch it. They're going to know it. They're going to know these performances. Yep. All these action movies, and it's not to discredit any of them, but all these ones you're seeing now, watch them in 5 years. They're not timeless. They're products of their time. They don't have the repay value of these older films.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more disheartening than showing your son a movie that's like 5 years old. You're going to love this. And when you're watching him with him, you're like, boy, this is crap, you know, but you take a movie from 30 years ago and it's, you know, you're showing it to a new generation.
Yep.
And
I know. There's a difference. There's heart in what we did, and we did it because we loved being there. We weren't there because we were being paid a lot of money. There was a lot of heart in it, and we really enjoyed it.
Now, I have to ask you before I take up any more of your time, what advice would you have to anyone who came to you and said, I really want to break into the action movie business?
Pay $17 and buy a ticket and go and watch one.
What if they were like me and just wanted to be a henchman?
Yeah. You know what? I do teach and things, and my whole thing is it's simple. You know, I always say to people when they want me to do this stuff, I say, you know what, if you want me to teach you how to act, you've gone to the wrong person because I can't, and nobody can. Acting is a natural ability that we all have. When you're born, you come out as an actor. I mean, for goodness sake, little kids, little babies, they get what they want by putting on a tantrum, by doing whatever they do. That's called acting. Mm-hmm. And so you grow up with that attitude. Some people carry it on. Some people are able to sustain that. Other people just go on to different things, you know, or they decide that that's not who they are. And that's the point, is all I can do is show you the parameters in an acting, and that's it. Like it's a square. It's like a room that's a square. And as a director or someone that's teaching you, all I can do is give you the furniture to put in the room. It's your choice where the furniture goes. And then I'll tell you whether it's right or wrong and ask you to move it or reposition it. And that way you understand that acting is not you. Acting is a group of people. There is no such thing as a actor. There are actors. And that means that the director, the actor, the co-star, the little guy that's at the end of the line, they're all part of what you're doing, and you have to work with every one of them to make it work as a whole. And it's that simple. And always, always take your craft seriously. Always. Go to school, learn, go to college, learn, understand what you're doing, understand the process of what you're doing, read the classics, understand what it was all about before you came along, and then do it, but do it well and do it properly. That's it.
Now, for all your fans out there that want to follow you, are you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of that stuff?
I'm on all of them.
No. I got to start following you on Twitter and Instagram because I have no friends on Instagram.
Oh, well, just send me a thing and I'll I'll Instagram you or whatever the hell they call it. I actually have an internet guy that does all of that. I mean, I answer my fans, but he puts stuff up for me, because if it was up to me, I would screw it up, or I'd put all the wrong stuff up. So he just puts all the stuff up on the internet for me. But yeah, you've got to be, especially if you get to half a position like I am. You've got to have the internet. You've got to have the followers. You've got to have everything, because that's what the producers expect.
Mm-hmm.
They expect you to be able to promote the product. Period. And so it's part of what it's all about, being an actor.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it. I hope you can come back on again one day.
Oh, I'd love to. It was fun.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening to the Chronicles of Hollywood History. Thank you from Gomez Richmond Productions.